Big tech making a meaningful contribution to the S&P 500's rebound from those April lows. However, our next guest keeping a close eye on several risks looming for the sector. Ted Mortonson, Baird tech strategist, joins us now to discuss. Ted, always good to see you on set.
Good to see you.
I want to start that last time we spoke, which I think was roughly about a month ago. I remember you noting, you were highlighting how negative sentiment was when it comes to tech. Has that changed at all, Ted, since we last spoke?
Yeah, it changed. I think if you go back to April 7th, when the VIX was at 60, people just got too pessimistic. And they were very much underweighted tech. And I think when Q1 earnings started, it became very obvious that we had more, I would say, performance in front of us. And there were a bunch of names that we're screening. We run a sentiment index that is pretty accurate, and everything was flashing by around the 7th of April. Now, what people are trying to do is they're trying to get equal weight in certain names, and it's really kind of a FOMO trade where they've just been caught flat-footed on having their exposures too low.
Well, I'm curious if they went too far in the other direction. And I was looking at some numbers from DataTrek that show that 62% of the gain in May came from the Mag 7 specifically, with the exception of Apple, which was actually off. But besides that, Nvidia and Microsoft were the two biggest contributors. So I guess now, how is tech priced considering the outlook?
I think in the near term, we really have to look what happens. If you look at Liberation Day, it was April 2nd. So Q1 earnings really don't mean a lot. I mean, we're going to have to see how all the tariff impacts hit Q2 and Q3. We won't know that. Our technology conference is in New York this whole week, and I'll be looking for what management says on sentiment. They haven't seen it yet, but if the visibility in the second half and into the tail end of 25 gets murky, I think we'll mark time here.
Today, of course, one big dynamic in the market is trade tensions, and it's U.S. and China, again, kind of flaring up. We have Washington, Beijing, they're kind of throwing barbs and accusations. Who's responsible for violating this, at least temporary trade agreement? I'm just curious, as a tech investor, how should you think about the opportunity long-term in China? I mean, is it still the big opportunity a lot of people used to think of it as, or no, you should adjust your expectations?
You should adjust your expectations. This is a national security issue for the U.S., and I think there's two...
And so it doesn't matter who's in the White House?
I think it matters, but President Trump is using generative AI, for example, as a bargaining chip. Look what he did with the Middle East. But more importantly, look what BIS, they went after Synopsys last week, and that's roughly 12% of their total revenue in China. So, and then you leverage on what we learned from Nvidia, $4.5 billion write-down on the H20. That's a big issue. So we're not playing games here. This is more, I think, as a national security issue than as a commerce issue.
Do you think that the street has properly factored in not just the trade thing, negotiations specifically, but more broadly the geopolitical environment that we're in?
Not a chance.
I mean, what should they be considering? How should that be factored in?
It's such a binary event, but what happened yesterday in Ukraine and Russia, we were talking about earlier, that's a major, major issue as far as global tensions, because it was on Russian soil, and it also took out a portion of their strategic triad. So that's a big, big deal. And if you look at what, even from the Biden administration, the Trump administration, we're at economic war with China right now on just restricting technology. China can't get 14 nanometer and below equipment. Now we're looking at Gen AI because the magical node is at 2 nanometers, and a lot of that next generation AI technology will be at that node, and we're restricting everything we possibly can against China to get there. So.
And when Nvidia reported, though, Ted, and listen, they laid out, hey, here's how much of a hit China's going to be. Investors, I mean, they still bid up that stock. I'm just curious what you made of that report. What did that report not just tell you about Nvidia, but just about the broader AI trend and theme?
It's a run. The genie's out of the bottle. And some of your guests previously have indicated that Gen AI explosion. This is probably one of the biggest builds in the history of technology. I think what got Nvidia going is some of Jensen's commentary around agentic AI. The loads are amazing, and in software, we're just starting agentic AI. And that's a paradigm shift in software just to begin with. But when President Trump decided to give the Middle East access, whether it be Saudi Arabia or the UAE, that was significant because that takes CapEx to a whole nother level that we haven't really been thinking about. And so I don't know how many billions of dollars of it, but it's significant.
To that point, there were some skeptics, Ted, who've been on the show and said 2025 could be kind of the high watermark of AI spend. This is it. This is the peak.
I think I disagree with that because I go back to the national security issue. Every single country, Europe is in trouble right now. They're 4 or 5 years behind us in Gen AI. If I was a minister or head of the EU, this is going to be a national security issue and how they defend themselves. Because if you look at Palantir, you look at Anduril, all these next generation companies are using software, and Gen AI is the new weapon. And I think if you look at these sovereign data centers that have to be built, it's maybe not what people are really focused on right now.
Well, and Ted, and by the way, you're speaking from experience here in terms of national security. You were a naval aviator. You served with the Joint Chiefs as well. So you know whereof you speak. I want to come back to the Middle East and just to leave it here. What is the risk, though, that another administration comes in and says that relationship is a national security threat?
It's always a risk. You can't, this is like playing chess on 4 levels. You just don't know which level to play on. I don't have any insights on that, but you have to deal with the facts we're given right now. And he opened up the kimono, so the genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah, definitely. Ted, thank you so much
Okay.
for coming in.
Great
Good to
seeing
see
you.
you.